I personally think Vikramaditya Motwane is one of the most talented filmmakers we have in Hindi cinema, and I have to confess, I think it's an absolute travesty that we are in a position in an environment where he has not had a theatrical release as a director since 2018 when he directed Bhavish Joshi's Superhero. Of course, he made the extremely beautiful and tragic series Jubilee that released last year, but I think it's quite sad that Motwane is considered not massy enough for the audience today. This is the man who brought us gems like Udan, Lutera, and Trap, and it just leaves me with conflicting feelings that most of these films are now reserved for a digital release rather than a wider audience. I might be reading too much into it, but I came in with all of these thoughts and feelings as I geared up to watch his next directorial venture, Control, starring Ananya Pandey in the lead role. I would be lying to you if I told you that I foreshadowed these two artists to collaborate with one another one day. While the debate continues on whether Ananya's career is being carefully curated so that her convincing performances all deal with characters that are essentially a part of her social and economic strata, that is going to be a separate debate altogether. I personally could not go through the self-aware pitch and the nauseatingly unfunny Call Me Bae that released last month. I mean, Ananya is playing an influencer in two consecutive projects in consecutive months in two totally different genres. Talk about a jackpot. Irrespective, if Vikramaditya Motwane is making a movie, I am seated. Even if it has Ananya as the lead, because she did prove her mettle in a movie like Kho Gaye Hum Kahan. No matter how much of a cakewalk it may have been for her, I'm curious. I feel like I have to constantly provide disclaimers with even the slightest compliment I give Ananya. That's how rageful people get when you point out a compliment for a product of nepotism. It is what it is. Anyway, Control focuses on the life of Nella Avasti, a social media influencer who starts a vlog channel with her boyfriend Joe Mascarenas, played by Vihan Samat. Their online presence is extremely successful, but all is not hunky-dory like the cookie-cutter beautiful grid that the couple presents to the public as Nella nabs Joe cheating on her. To make matters worse, it is all caught during an Instagram live for the entertainment of the public. As Nella is having an emotional breakdown, she wants to remove the digital footprint of Joe from her life using an AI tool called Control that is assisted by a digital avatar voiced by Apar Shakti Khurana. As Nella takes control of her life through the assistance of the AI software, mysterious events start to happen, including the disappearance of her ex-boyfriend Joe. The transition of the screenplay from a playful Gen Z story to an investigative thriller on the perils of AI and the growing dependence on technology forms the premise of Control. Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the film so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch it on Netflix or not. Screen life technique of filmmaking. This technique of filmmaking showcases action from the perspective of a character's device, such as phone, tablet, or computer. This is a technique that you may have seen in movies like Unfriended and Searching, where the entire screenplay is visually presented through either the UI of websites and apps, the camera of a phone or laptop, or camcorder and CCTV footage. This allows for a visceral experience as it essentially feels like you are eavesdropping on the characters. People really hold their devices sacred in this day and age, and a total nosedive in their deepest, darkest secrets causes for great intrigue as the screenplay of this film progresses. If you have seen the Malayalam film See You Soon that released during the pandemic, it was one of the best examples of filmmakers telling a tight-knit thriller in the most efficient way possible. Looking at just the alarming average screen time we have as humans on our devices, the film also visually showcases to us how a life dependent on these devices is full of color and vibrancy, an indication of the dopamine hits we get from the content we are glued to, and how life takes a dark turn when it's snatched away from you. What was normal once, a life devoid of technology, is represented with an overcast dread of grey and sadness. Something cinematographer Pratik Shah does so well with this film. Mixed authenticity of social media and its dynamics. I think you have sat through a rant with me as I reviewed Call Me Bae and empathized with my frustration on the depiction of social media and what can go viral. Just a clear indication of boomers writing for a younger demographic and not understanding the landscape or the language they communicate with. This film, however, is a breath of fresh air in that regard. The film presents Nella and Joe as a couple that grows in popularity online and how they become mere slaves to the algorithm in constantly wanting to entertain them at the cost of their own happiness as well. This is something that becomes inevitable if you have spent enough time on the internet. Trust me, I have. As couples make their private lives public, it blurs the line between what is real between them and what is being done just for content. You can see several examples around you of popular influencers who open their doors to the public in their private matters and how it turns sour and the same audience turns on them. The film depicts the mob online and wanting a villain to hate accurately. The algorithm functions in such a way where a 2 to 3 day cycle of outrage requires a villain, only for the mob to move on to the next target. The integration of meme culture and everything becoming social media fodder, no matter how grave or emotional, was authentically portrayed. The tone-deaf nature of the news channels and how they cover sensitive matters was something that hit the nail on the head. It's all too real and disturbing because it taps the media channel's invasive quality of making everything about TRP, even the most heartbreaking chapters of people's personal lives. The only aspect of the social media depiction that I believed screamed boomer energy was Nella's cringeworthy post-breakup music video that presumably goes viral and in turn leads to many brands approaching her. The quality of the video, lyrics and vocals gave out-of-touch social media influencer energy. It literally reminded me of someone who was popular in this landscape at one point of time and somehow just became outdated in the process. These loud texts on screen as a cringeworthy musical number talks about woman power and you go girl energy was extremely dated. However, what the film highlights as a cautionary tale and what may become our inevitable future is scary, and more on that later. What disconnected me slightly? One of the most engaging films on similar themes as individuals in an evolving society become more insular was the Spike Jonze directed film Her starring Joaquin Phoenix. The AI technology that Joaquin gets feelings for is voiced by Scarlett Johansson. The voice is personable, natural in cadence, and engages in banter with the user. In this case, the AI is voiced by Apar Shakti Khurana, and it in several moments disconnected me as the voice was pitched as if Apar Shakti was emceeing a live event versus actually talking to a user and forming a relationship in the process. The organic nature with which a user gets drawn to the technology was much more seamless in a masterpiece like Her, and this movie lacked that creepy but seamless touch. The AI avatar mostly is found cracking PJs, and it did not seem like Ananya was absolutely drawn to the technology. What's effective is when you consider the technology to be a friend that will guide you every step of the way, whereas there was a somewhat distance in this parasitic relationship. Nothing is worse than a relationship when you're in too deep. The red flags were all presented right in front of you, and you look past it assuming that they might have your best interest. I am not speaking from personal experience.
Are you sure about that?
The cast and the doomed future. Ananya Pandey fits perfectly in this film. This is her world. She's playing a Delhi girl who shifts to Mumbai, having aspirations to have her own apartment in Bandra while doing brand shoots for her social media. Could anything be more tailor-made for Ananya? She definitely has been hitting a goldmine with these opportunities, and she brings forth a conviction to Nella, much like what she brought to Ahana and Kho Gaye Hum Kahan. She is effective in the mood when the world is her oyster and she looks at everything with rose-tinted glasses. Equally as convincing when confronting her ex-boyfriend. Vihan is commendable as Joe, slightly fumbling in his dialogue delivery in dramatic portions of the film, but putting up a satisfactory act when engaging in an argument with Nella. The horrifying aspect of the film, however, is the sheer dependence of us on applications and devices that are essentially owned by multi-billion-dollar companies, and how blind we are with our vital information, showcasing more faith on strangers than our own family members. It reminds me of the Black Mirror episode Joan is Awful, where the terms and conditions of the streaming platforms we view are never read, and the legal and moral implications that come with it will always be a surprise to us because we literally sign off on something we don't read, making us absolutely vulnerable on faulty ground if we want to argue against our data being compromised. But it makes me really wonder, is there really going to be any change? The generations after millennials were born into this technology. The poison has spread so deep that a life without these devices also makes you feel powerless. We are witnessing a generation that is on the internet, where the primary motive is to put on an act, the most flowery depiction of your life so that you can feel secure. So of course, God forbid I can't post a reel of the new re-released Laila Majnu or be a part of the Coldplay concert. Of course I'm going to have a hissy fit because if I did not post about it online, did it really happen? We are really entirely dependent on these companies, having no legal standing as individuals, assuming we had given an inch but we actually signed off on a mile and more. As the biggest currency of the world today, data is for everyone's consumption, without us knowing what we gave away with one click of a button. It's only going to get worse. And the real question arises, even after watching the film, will you really become mindful when you add another subscription of an app to your device? The disease really has spread too far for a course correction. Control becomes a cautionary tale of a horrifying inevitable future, which you have seen done exceptionally well in a series like Black Mirror. With its 1 hour and 39-minute running time, Motwane still does make you introspect of our doomed dependence on technology and what the future may have to offer. It ain't looking that great. And that was a video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about Control. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.